My name is Lea and I'm 33 years old. Today I wanted to share my experience and how it was like going through sexual assault by two family members. I was born in Mexico and I was just 5 years old when my mom passed right in front of me. And I still remember her fainting and the ambulance ushering her away. And that was the last time that I saw her. My dad was too old to take care of any of us. I was the 16th child, but my mom, my biological mom, only had 3 of us. So when she passed away, it was decided that us 3 should go to different homes. Me and my sister ended up going to one of our half siblings, and my brother ended up staying with my dad, and he's the one that actually ended up taking care of my dad. I was raised by my half sibling who, as a kid, you can just tell the type of affection you get or don't get. You see the difference of what other, like their biological kids get. And you just grow up knowing that anything that you get is like you have to earn it. Me and my sister were made to clean. And then another half sibling took care. She just took me, not my sister. My sister stayed back in Mexico. And then I was brought here to the U.S. and I grew up just fine with that half sister. Things were great. I was in school here. I was learning English, and I think that it was decided that it was best for, at least that's what I was told, that it was best for me to be with my sister. We needed to grow up together. I was taken back to Mexico to be with my sister, and I was back in that same household that I initially was growing up in. So I was back in Mexico at 8. And the abuse started happening around when I was 9. I knew by that point, I knew that my mom was not coming back. I knew that my dad was, I had very little contact with him. It was just something that I had accepted, like, your parents are gone. My half-sister, she had 5 kids. 4 of them were older. 1 of them was younger. And me and my sister, we hung out with our younger nephew because he was so close to our age. The rest were more than 10 years our senior. I don't remember exactly when was the first instance. They're all just unique instances that I remember that I can piece together. They're not in any chronological order, but I do remember that stuff started happening in the bedroom that I used to sleep in. It wasn't my own bedroom. We shared bedrooms. Obviously, there was enough to go around, but it was a queen size bed, and I used to sleep with one of my nieces. This family member would crawl into the other side of the edge of the bed where I was sleeping, and then he would start touching me, and he would like hold me up against him, and just, it started that way. It didn't start with any type of penetration at that point. It was more like trying to, and I just remember feeling like so rigid, like I couldn't move. I'm 9 years old. I know, like, there's something that I know is wrong about this, but he said, don't speak or don't do anything, and don't tell anyone. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I already know that I'm really like on the low totem pole, and I don't know if what I say is going to be believed, or are they going to say, it was your fault. That instance happened with that one family member. The same with another family member. I'm not sure if they each knew what they were doing. I can't count how many times that happened until where they would go into the bed and fondle me and do all that stuff, until they actually got to do the penetration. My body's so small. I remember they didn't even get to go all the way because I was so small. And that next morning, I woke up with my bloody underwear, and my half-sibling, she was thinking that I started my period. There's other instances I remember. There was a shed where one of my family members used to work on electronics or radios, trying to fix up stuff, maybe some mechanical work. One time he called me into the shed. He was sitting on a chair, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be alone in the room. I was like, I don't want to be alone in the room with him. He called me over. He was like, come sit on my lap. And I was like, no. He actually pulled me and set me on his lap and like started like trying to fondle me and stuff. And I remember I already knew what happened. So I tried as hard as I could to get out of his grip. And I couldn't. I was so little. And that same family member in Mexico, there's these places, which is like junkyard, and there's like a whole bunch of trash. And since he fixed a lot of radios and things like that, he wanted to see if he could find something like that. He took my little nephew, and he took my sister and me. It was in a truck, and he told them to go and gallivant and see if they could find some things that they found worthy. And he told me to stay behind. I was like, and let me go with them, please. But they took off and they left me, and it was like a 3-seater in the front, and he laid me down and he was on top of me, and he was just like gyrating his body. Like he didn't take my clothes off, but again, he was wanting to dry hump me, and I felt so disgusted. And he acted like nothing happened when my sister and nephew came back. I just remember like wanting to run away when I was 9. I was like, I'm gonna run away. And then I was like, I had to talk myself out of it. I'm like, where am I gonna go? Who's gonna help me? And the worst part about this is later on when I recounted this to my sister explained that this was also happening to her. She said that to her, the abuse wasn't as far as penetration, but they did fondle and abuse her. And had she known that this was happening to me, that she would have spoke, because she thought that if they were doing it to her, maybe they wouldn't get to do it to me. She's 4 years older than me, so at that point she was 13. You could just feel the absence of love or care. It almost felt like taking care of us was a nuisance. So there was nobody to advocate for us or anything. And I don't know. I don't think they knew of the abuse, but again, when later on they found out what was happening, I don't know that they would have done anything different, because they tried to sweep everything under the rug. A lot of people tend to say, well, what were you doing? What were you wearing? What brought this on? And you look at like how little a 9-year-old kid is, and it's like, what? There's no explanation for that other than that you're a sick abuser, you're a sick pedophile. Because that's just not, there should be no sexual attraction to somebody that little. Somebody so helpless, unable to do anything about it. I knew that it was wrong. But to me, it's like, who do I tell? There's no advocate for me. There was no phone. I couldn't just, I didn't kind of call somebody up or text somebody and say, hey, this is happening to me. I'm just in this household. Somehow them telling me, don't say anything. You better not say anything to anybody. That made me realize, okay, so this is wrong. But again, who am I going to tell that will be able to change the situation? And even if they know, it's like, now they're going to know, and now I'm still here, and the abuse is going to get worse. Or I don't know what my logic was, but at 9 years old, I'm not sure that there is any logic. When I came back to the U.S., I remember being shuffled from one family member, which was my half brother. I was in his household for about 2 weeks. Then I'm not sure how long, with my other half sibling that raised me here in the U.S. for about a year or so. And then finally, one of my cousins from my mother's side, she got me and my brother and my sister. She wanted to raise all of us together. She was like my savior. She ended up getting us, all 3 of us, and we were like, oh my God, we're all together now. I'm not sure how long it must have been long, and I'm not sure how we started speaking about it, but both me and my sister told her about what was going on, and she couldn't believe it. She was like, oh my God, I did not know that this was happening to you guys. I would have, gotten you guys sooner. And she told our family members, and I don't think they wanted to believe it, and she stopped that contact with those family members. And for a while, I didn't have that communication with them, and I started growing up, normal, and I was happy now that this was going to be a stable household that I was growing up in. And because of the legal complexities of the Mexican legal system, I don't know that she was in her early 20s. So my adoptive mother, which was my cousin, I think that she wanted to seek some type of justice, but she wasn't sure how to do it. And back in Mexico, because now we're in the U.S., but she did make sure that our family member from my father's side, that they all knew what happened and tried to see, like, did anybody know? And I think everybody said no, they didn't know. Everything was fine until later on. I was around 13, and one of my nieces, she lived here in the U.S. I think my adoptive mother, my cousin, she wanted for us to resume that those relationships and to keep in contact, because the abuse wasn't by everyone, and according to them, they didn't know. So me and my sister and my brother, we went to stay at her house here in the U.S. and they didn't have enough bedrooms. We were just sleeping on the floor of we had a makeshift bed on the floor of the living room, and one of the family members of the abuse back in Mexico happened to be there. My mother didn't know, and I was like, okay. And I knew he was there, but I didn't, I thought, I'm older, I'm 13. He's not going to try to do anything now. I have a voice. I'm going to speak up if something happens. But sure enough, he went and laid down next to me, and he started trying to fondle me. And I told him, like, no, you cannot, like, no, get away. And he did get away. And then the next morning, that was when I told my niece, I was like, hey, did you know this is what happened last night? Right there in the living room. I think, again, it's like, well, are you sure? Are you sure he wasn't just, it's like everything tries to get reasoned or justified away, that no, it's not happening, or this can't be. We're all under the same roof, but it was happening. And that's the last contact that I had with any of those two family members until later on, when I confronted them in 2020 in Mexico myself. But I think that after that instance where I was 13 and it happened, I think everybody got together at one of my other half siblings' houses, and they were all arguing about it. And some of them were on my side, and some of them were trying to say, no, that how could this be happening? So I know that some kind of like verbal altercation happened. I don't know what happened after that with that discussion, but it's like there wasn't any type of, well, we got to get the police involved or anything like that. It just all dissipated into nothing. But at least for me, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know about any pressing charges. I'm 13. But for me, at least, the consolation was that I didn't have any contact with them anymore. So what could they do to me? And after that, there was no more. My mother didn't take us there anymore. It is a little shameful, because you just know that there's something different. And when people say, like, you took my innocence away, it really does take away your innocence. There's things that you discover about yourself that shouldn't be discovered until much later. As you get older, you're trying to date and you're seeking like that bond, but also you're ashamed of what could transpire. I think that the best help has been getting support from some family members that have acknowledged that happened. And I have a husband who's very supportive, and I've shared my story with him, and he just makes sure that I feel like, supported and loved. And so that's been helpful for me. But one of the most influences that I've had is my adoptive mother, who, she's like, we were recently talking about this, and she's like, oh my God, you were so little. And she was sending me some pictures, and it just hurt so much to see how little I was. And I have 3 boys of my own now, and to see pictures of them, and they look so much like me. And when I was that age, and I just can't picture anything like that happening to my kids or to any of my family members, kids. It just shouldn't happen. There's a lot of people that say I wouldn't change my past because it made me a stronger person. You know, it's like being stronger through adversity. But yeah, of course I would change my past. If I was to choose not to be a victim of sexual abuse or not a survivor, I would choose not to. I have a career that I love now. I have supportive friends, family members, and, you know, have a balanced work life. I'm getting my bachelor's degree soon. I'd like to think that through that adversity, I became successful, but I don't know if it's despite it or with it. The reason why that I wanted to share my story was because I wanted other people to be able to speak about their stories and share them and know that it's going to resonate with somebody and maybe give them that sense of like, hey, I can tell my story too, and for awareness to be out there, because too many people want to sweep it under the rug or not recognize that their family members are capable of doing something like that. Or sadly, some people say, well, it must have not happened. She doesn't act like a victim. And that to me is some of the things that I've heard most, especially when I confronted them. And some people say, well, that couldn't have happened. You're not even crying when you're telling me, or you're not even, those are the things I've heard. It's like, I've recounted the story so many times, it's not going to have the same impact every time I tell it, but I'm telling it to you. I'm telling it with what happened, the facts, and I don't know, there's just like expectations of what a victim should look like or be like or behave like, and it's not all the same. Doesn't mean the abuse didn't happen.